let's see how this works. Holy shit. What a rabbit hole I got myself down. Rabbit hole, or should I say, that joke's not really going to land at all if this green screen idea doesn't work out. June 28th, 1896, at 3 a.m. in Pittston, Pennsylvania, 58 men died as a result of a mine collapse brought on by management incompetence and greed, marking this as the single greatest coal mining disaster in Pennsylvania history. Yet again, there we go with the greatest coal mining disaster in history. At least this time, they claimed it was just for Pennsylvania, but I digress. Hi, I'm Detective Trogdor, and today I've actually written a script this time because there's a lot of information. Well, there's always a lot of information. It's kind of the reason for these videos. But I've written a script this time, and I'm going to see if I can hold it all together because I'm actively avoiding studying for my National Registry exam for my EMT, as well as I have my practicals today. And instead of practicing for those, I am behind my shed while they work on my house, and I'm going to just try to stay sane. Pray for me. In 1887, the Twin Shaft mine was sunk from the Marcy seam to the red ash seam of anthracite coal, which went down to depths of about 434 feet. Now, 434 feet, for those to give you reference, that would be about like 0.34 the height of the Eiffel Tower. I'm sure that's a good reference point for you. As discussed in previous videos, namely the Centralia mine fire video, and there goes my neighbor's compressor fan, so hopefully you don't hear just that when I talk. But anthracite is a very valuable natural resource, especially within reference to the time that it is being used. But in summary, anthracite compared to bituminous coal is much like how Everclear is compared to PBR. Now, I mean, in 2017, that wouldn't have mattered. I would have drank either. I would have mixed the two together. But it's 2024, so that's not the same person. You know what? Fuck this. Personal story time, because I have this channel named, Detective Trogdor's Deep Dive, and, the deep dive comes from the obvious where I just start going down, studying various random things, but the Detective Trogdor side, I'm sure that none of you guys really know where that came from. So, story time. The year was 2015. I was deployed for the first time on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, CVN 71, and we were on a 9-month deployment. Thing you have to know, so I worked in ship's propulsion, so engineering rates, generally speaking, they hate everyone topside, meaning, like people that are working on just normal jobs on the ship or are working in aviation departments and whatnot. We also hate ourselves, within ourselves. Like, we like to find any excuse to, shit on other people. And we also hate ourselves personally because we are working in miserable heat, just miserable working hours, and completely under the radar. And it's probably compounding that we are so hateful of everyone else, so they kind of hate us back, so then we feel unappreciated. I don't want to get into that, but I digress. So one day, we had a shipmate that they suddenly decided to start calling themselves Batman, which in and of itself is a pretty bold name to give to yourself. So, I mean, on one hand, you could be because you were orphaned, because your parents got murdered in an alley after the opera, and you suddenly got a large sum of money, which calls the question, why are you enlisted in the Navy? But this person decided to call themselves Batman because when walking through the ship one day, they had a bunch of just random tools on their belt, which was not in uniform. We did it anyway, but they went overboard with it. So someone in passing definitely made a comment to the tune of it being like more of an insult than anything else. Like, oh, look, here comes Batman walking down the hallway. So this person heard that nickname and was like, I finally arrived. I now have a nickname. Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, what are you doing? I'm trying to record a video right now. Could you do this anywhere else? No? You're going to eat trash back there? Okay. So I'm talking, this person put their, they start telling other people to call them that. They started putting, they would label, water bottles with Batman on it. They would just write it everywhere. And it was pretty obnoxious. And like I said earlier, the one thing that engineers hate more than, themselves is other engineers. So me and my space supervisor, we devised a plan. Could you be quiet back there? No? Can you go lay eggs in a better place besides underneath the porch? Fucking chicken. Anyway, so me and my space supervisor, we decided that, enough's enough. We've had enough of this person having fun with a simple thing that brought them joy. We thought it was annoying. We thought it was cringe as hell. So we came up with the idea, how about, because now mind you, no one was calling this person Batman. Like, no one was calling them that. There was no reason to be calling them Batman. So we thought to ourselves, maybe if we gave ourselves nicknames, we could see if this will actually work. Now, mind you, this other person's nickname that I don't even remember if we gave him one. We gave me one, and that's all that really matters for the story. So after, discussing, because we're bored on watch, we came up with the nickname Trogdor. Now, this is a homage to the 2003 strong bed email titled Dragon, which you should also go look. And by the way, homestarrunner.com is still up. It doesn't post as often as way back in the day, but they still have some golden stuff on there, like Diaper Sunrise. That's a good video. So I went with the name Trogdor because, like I said, it was a good homage to my upbringing of internet cartoons. And it started off really subtle. My space supervisor would call me that nickname from across the plant where other people were, so they would hear it, and just kind of start planting those seeds here and there. I would maybe put write it down somewhere. Not a big deal. On nothing official, because that's not officially my name. So we get to the point where it's 2 weeks have passed. Now, Batman, as they wanted to call themselves, no one had been calling them Batman. People had actually called them out, be like, why are you calling yourself Batman? They had to explain every single time why people were calling them Batman. But as for me, it got to the point where our senior most enlisted for our division, our E9, our Master Chief, for those that don't know the ranks of the Navy, he started calling me Trogdor. And it was one of those I finally arrived moments. Unlike with Batman, it's I finally arrived. No, this time I've actually had superiors calling me that. I went so far with his nickname as to I actually ordered a leather name tag for my coveralls that would say, it would be MM2, have my surface warfare pin, and hard brag right there. It would say Trogdor B for Burninator, and then my last name. And I'm not giving you that easy. If you know what my last name is, good for you. If you don't, do some research. Do you have anything to say? You guys both came over here. No? Nothing to say? All right, then get your poopy butts out of here. Go lay some eggs where I can find them. So anyway, the nickname kind of stuck. It was, like I said, it was more of a joke than anything else, but it actually carried pretty well. I had people now and again, they'll actually call me Trogdor, and it's just weird because, like I said, it was a fake nickname, and it is in a sense a little cringe, but it works. So now we're going to fast forward to 2017. So I am going through aircrew school, and namely a VP30, and I'm just in a classroom with some friends, and I don't know how we got onto the subject, but essentially they're saying about how they don't understand my Instagram handle because it just doesn't make any sense. What the hell is the Commodore 91? Now, the Commodore 91, that one was named for my pet rabbit I had back in 2014 or something like that. His name was Commodore Schmidlap, which is a reference to the Commodore Schmidlap from the 1966 Adam West Batman movie. So my nickname or my handle was the Commodore 91 for the longest time because it just worked. As Todd Howard says, it just works. So I was like, you know what? Maybe it is time for a change. Had it for a while. I'm kind of a newer person with newer people. I'll change it up. I'll make it a little more identifiable. And I told them the story of the nickname, so they understood Trogdor. So I was like, well, I can't just put straight Trogdor. That's already taken. How about Detective Trogdor? And that's where it came from. I literally just put a title in front of it, and that's where it is, and it's stuck. That's just what it is, and it's worked. And it's yet again, like Todd Howard says, it just works. Well, story time is over. Chick-fil-A is just gonna be yep. All right. Well, anyway, back to talking about anthracite. So it is a very rare rock, for lack of better words, because bituminous coal in comparison is very, very plentiful. It's easy to find it. It's all over the place. But anthracite is very valuable. It's very rare, so they treat it as such. So when they find it, they try to mine the hell out of it. So anthracite can primarily be found in Pennsylvania, but it's also located in Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Mexico, Utah, Virginia, Washington, and West Virginia. There are other locations globally, but they aren't Pennsylvania, so they suck. Mainly talking about Arkansas. Arkansas sucks. If you want to know more about coal, like specifically about like its chemistry or how it burns and stuff like that, because at this point I've talked about coal so much, I feel like I should. But I want to know if that's even worthwhile my time. So if you think that's a good idea, leave me a comment below and just tell me what direction you want this to go, because I'm just gonna keep doing mining disasters at this point. That's really what this channel has become. I have other things in there. I have other things in the pocket, but I keep gravitating back to them. I'm not going to be a coal miner. I'm not doing that. So anyway, the shaft goes down, and it starts with number 1 shaft. So it goes out, and then I assume, because like I am not, now we got planes going overhead. Anyway. The masculine urge to watch airplanes fly overhead. So anyway, so the main shaft goes down, and then it splits off into shaft. So it goes down, and then it goes straight. That's shaft 1, and then 2 and 3 branch off of that. I'm only going to assume that's how it's laid out, because I don't know how to read these maps. Like they're garbage. I'll put one of them right here, or maybe I'll just put it over all of me. But yeah, it's really difficult for me to understand what the hell I'm looking at. Slope 2 heads west and goes under the Susquehanna River, and slope 3 heads north and an upward incline, crossing under the Lackawanna River and going under Duryea Yard, formerly known as Coxton Yard. Fun fact, there's an entire song by Title Fight that I'm not getting paid anyway. I'll just put a little clip of it right here.
Feeling like a bag of bones, shriveled up and cold, 19 years old.
From a title fight called Coxton Yard, and I can't remember if it's actually, I think it's it just talks about that area, that it's not actually about this issue. I wrote down here, I don't know how to segue to this next point, but it says it is also called the Bank Farm, which was owned by the Lehigh Valley Coal Company and leased to Newton Coal Company. So do with that information what you will. So in this red area on the map, about 10 acres were mined. The vein splits in 2 and is divided vertically. The red ash vine is divided by about 11 feet of stone, and the upper vein only being about 4.5 feet thick. So to ensure mine carts could fit, because they are so tall and you still have to be able to get things into them, they don't really care about the workers being comfortable. They care more about the mine carts, because they go into that sweet, sweet coal. To ensure the minecarts could fit, they were able to haul off the precious stone. They decided to take out some of the clearance on the floor instead of the ceiling. Apparently the ceiling was way too hard to break, so the floor was actually easier. And in old-timey mining, they just use dynamite to, break up the floor, make it easier for them to get to it. Unsurprisingly, the blast would shake the earth and cause rock to fall into the chamber beneath it. So if you're blasting the floor, and then the chamber below, the ceiling started caving in from there, which I still can't fathom how people had the courage to go down there and do it. I'll run into burning buildings, no problem. But mines, that's a whole nother thing. So before I go any further, to just give you an idea of how prosperous this mine was, I was about to say, I don't really have any numbers to reference to, but I'll just throw up the numbers here anyway. In 1890, they did 99,313 tons of coal. In 1891, they did 24,900. No, that number is way off. They did 249,651.15 tons. And then in 1892, they only got 232,057, and that was because on September 11th, 1892, the twin shaft engine house and shaft tower burned to the ground, caused by a lamp. The fire caused a disruption of airflow into and out of the mine, which caused a buildup of gases in the mine, so they had to stall work. It was fortunate that this happened on a Sunday, so the mine was empty. Therefore, the interruption of forced ventilation wasn't a big issue, especially compounding that the stagnant air could cause an explosion if met with a miner's lamp, because they had those little flames on their head at the time. The shaft resumed normal operations on November 17th, 1892, so they lost a month plus 6 days of production. So that's why their numbers went down. But then, boom, 1893 rolls around, and just like any good capitalist society, we are increasing those numbers. We got to have the shareholders that get satisfied. In 1893, we had 294,630.04 tons. 1894, 331,630 tons. See, just these numbers keep going up. Here's where we start to dip just a hair. In 1895, we did 361,011 tons. And I keep saying we like I'm a part of it. But then in 1896, there was only 191,601 tons. And this is, obviously, 1896, as I said at the beginning of the video, this is the year that the incident occurs. So, fast forward down my notes. Oh my God, I put way too much information in here, especially about my own name. I could have just recited that from memory. So, in February of 1896, a plane is starting to fly over, so I'm going to need to pause one moment. In February of 1896, a crack appeared in the roof, and water and soft coal, also known as bituminous coal, fell through a fissure about 6 inches wide. Mining in the area stopped for a safety check, and a borehole was drilled from the surface. So instead of being in the danger area, they came from the top and drilled down. The bore inspection showed 146 feet of sand and 257 feet of rock. And if you add those two together, that's 403 feet. I don't know if you know this, but I have a calculator on my phone. So that satisfied them, and they resumed work in the area, just like that. They're okay with it. Stuff just fell from the ceiling. They're okay with it. Inspector McDonald, the author of the 1896 report of the 3rd Anthracite District covering the collapse, says they visited the mine on March 26, escorted by mine boss Michael Lynott and fire boss Alexander McCormick. He noted water coming from the fissure, but nothing of concern. Now, mind you, 6-inch hole disappeared in the ceiling and shit fell through it. Go back to work. On April 15th, they visited again, and again noted nothing of concern. When pressing the bosses, they mentioned nothing about an observed squeeze or any indication of one. About 2 weeks prior to the incident, surveyors reported to General Superintendent Lowe, which is one hell of a title for mining, that the mine was squeezing, and that unless preventative steps were taken, immediate cave-in or fall may occur. So this is the point in the video where I teach you again. Well, I'm teaching you the whole time. This is where I teach you about something about mining that I haven't had to cover yet because this is the first time this type of incident has occurred. So today's lesson is on a squeeze. Squeezes occur when the earth above a mine begins to settle and press down, or squeeze the chamber below. This can occur for a variety of reasons and can range from minor but frightening to catastrophic, and you're dead. Now, mind you, remember, this is settling. So we had, they're throwing a bunch of dynamite in the floor to make it open up a little better so they can get mine carts in. And then all of a sudden we had the ceiling of like the entire mine just cracked open and shit started falling through, and they thought, this will be fine. The conditions of a mine are evaluated prior to digging to ensure there is sufficient geological support to prevent a cave-in. And this is done with boreholes and other surveys. Like I said before, they did boreholes from the surface. These surveys are necessary for the safety of the miners, but more importantly for the mine owners because of the potential loss of resources and man-hours due to the cave-ins. So it's not a matter of the loss of work that could be done. So let's say it caves in and no one got hurt if we're lucky. But if it caves in, they can't get that spot anymore. That's a loss of all that anthracite, because if that place is unstable, you ain't mining that back out again. Reasons for the squeeze to occur vary, but in general, it's due to weakening of the support structure from the ceiling, whether that's the walls or the support columns. A weakening of the floor can also be a cause, but... Okay, class dismissed. All right, so back to talking about Superintendent Rob Lowe. That's not his first name, but... Superintendent Lowe responded accordingly. However, the signs and symptoms only continued to worsen. Adding to the issue generated by the fissure in the ceiling, pillar robbing, which is when you mine off of, so if I were to start cutting wood off of this structure, I don't know what to call this thing, they started taking wood off of this because I was like, I need wood from that specific 3x4? Buster! Dog tripped over the microphone. Adding to the issues generated by the fissure in the ceiling, pillar robbing was occurring in the weeks preceding the squeeze, further weakening the support of the structure in the 400 plus feet of earth, or 403 if you remember my math. Now, just to give a real quick recap on what pillar robbing is, let's pretend that this wood right here is anthracite, okay? And it is supporting the earth above me. So if I start carving out more and more of this anthracite, because I think that it is going to, I can, get more anthracite out of there, it is now weakening. Now we're only at 3 legs holding up this structure, the earth, this building, okay? We're going to go back to wood. So if I keep taking wood off of this thing and I rely on this piece of wood to hold it up, that's not good. And then I come over to this one. Get the fuck out of here. I come over to this one, and I start taking wood off of this one, too, and I suddenly become surprised when this ceiling isn't holding itself up anymore. But, screw it. I need more coal. Let's go off to that one in the back. Yeah! Go off to that one in the back. And then that one, and that's pillar robbing, is you are taking stuff off of the support structures from inside the cave. Inside the mine. Despite the hurried installation of a bunch of support, like wooden support columns, at 3 a.m. on June 28th, June 28th? Yes, at June 28th, 1896, the squeeze occurred. Residences in the area trembled. Windows and doors shook in their frames. People were thrown from their beds, and a general state of confusion was felt across Pittston as people were awoken to what was best described as 3 large explosions. The sensation was best described as that an earthquake had hit the town. Before logic could be restored to everyone's freshly awoken minds, because it was 3 a.m, the colliery whistle and fire alarm sounded, ushering a sense of dread across the town. When you hear those sirens and you live in a coal mining town, you know what those mean. Families flooded the streets and charged the coal mine to find the masses huddled in hysteria around the shaft. Initial reports claimed 100 people were lost during the collapse, but as about only 90 workers were in the mine that day. However, the total loss came to 58 deceased. So it's wild reading these old-timey newspapers, because I did actually read stuff from that time to figure out the first-hand perspective of what was going on. Old-timey newspapers are a little problematic. I wouldn't necessarily say racist, because I'll read an excerpt for you, and I would say get demonetized, but I'm not getting paid anyway, so who gives a shit? So I'll read a little excerpt from one of the newspapers and let you see what I mean by problematic. Wilkes-Barre, PA, June 29th, when 90 miners were at work in the red ash vein of the twin shaft at Pittston. About 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, the roof caved in, and it is believed that all men perished. About 40 of the imprisoned men were English-speaking miners, not miners, like miners. The others foreign. Their names are, and I'm not going to read all the names. And it goes further on to say, aside from these, there may be other English-speaking miners among the unfortunate. 30 Polanders and Huns were entombed, and it is thought the total number of bodies in the mine will reach 100. Why do I sound like Toby Determined in that? The 58 deceased were a mixture of men and boys, and I guess actually I could have said minors in this case, because this is 1896. I need to look up when children minors were made illegal. They didn't care about laws back then. It was mining. I've said before they kind of skirt the rules. Never mind. The 58 deceased were a mixture of men and boys, and the initial reports of a loss were delayed, as well as due to the manifest being lost in the collapse. So the list of people that were working were in the mine, which is probably the worst place to have a list of people that you need to do for a muster after the fact. Initial rescue attempts were made, and when James Langan, brother of M.J. Langan, acting mayor, who was trapped, made it about 600 feet down the slope, he was met with mine gases. It's not clear of what kind, but I imagine both explosive and non-explosive are bad to breathe. It's not oxygen, so you probably shouldn't breathe it. After ascending the shaft, degassing the area, another attempt was made to traverse down slope 3. After teams were organized for the rescue, they were initially met with a wall of rocks blocking where the big squeeze had occurred. 2 rescue tunnels were attempted, only removing about 20 feet of rubble a day at best. Realizing that it was about 1,000-ish feet of rubble to remove to get to any possible survivors, management shifted a plan to dig through the 85 feet of coal from the Clear Springs Colliery. And I don't know if it's pronounced colliery or colliery? Colliery.
Colliery.
The plan didn't end up coming to fruition, as the logistics stated that, digging about another 1,000 feet with the possibility that section would also probably be collapsed in. It wasn't just like the entrance collapsed, it was probably the entire thing was collapsed in, considering they knew exactly what they were doing wrong down there. Efforts were also complicated due to the fact that the people that knew the layout, such as mine foreman Lynott, fire boss McCormick, and other bigwigs, were amongst the 58 that were possibly still alive inside there, but as we find out, they're dead. Superintendent Langan had a list of all working men in the mine, but he too was inside the mine and died during the collapse. I mean, allegedly died. He could still be alive. Let's see how this video pans out. There was hope that maybe miners may have fled the collapse, like they had heard it coming, because the squeezes, like, they will have sounds preceding them. It isn't just a sudden fall. But then again, there were a lot of issues beforehand, like the entire sound of it squeaking and shaking. That was probably a good indicator that something was inevitable. But alas, they figured that if there were so many different kind of gas, like mining gases, like fire damp, black damp, all that kind of stuff. Probably not black damp because there were no fires, at least alleged, in the area. If there were people trapped in a pocket on the other side, the oxygen they would have left would be heavily saturated with these gases as well, because as the earth shifts, some of the methane comes out. There was also a theory that if they continued to dig, that they would disturb the gravel that was existing there, and it would just collapse in on them anyway, because the whole earth just collapsed in. It's unstable at this point. The earth is the way it has been for eons, and we start moving it, and all of a sudden it violently shifts down. It's probably not as stable as it once was, when all those rocks formed there. The list of missing employees was made primarily on the basis of asking who was missing family members or people they knew that were working that night, since a lot of hired help were not regular employees like contractors, or were non-English speaking migrants. Or the foreigners, as it says. The property above which the collapse occurred was noted to have been visibly disturbed, which makes sense when 400 plus feet of earth suddenly shifts down. I mean, it didn't collapse 400 feet, but it shifted down pretty significantly, so you would imagine that the yard above it would be, I see a lizard. That's gone. Attempts to shore up and stop the settling were made, but in futility, because inevitably the risk to reward was calculated, and with the understanding that there would pretty much be no survivors, they decided to forego the entire retrieval of the bodies, and they just wanted to leave them there and just have a mass grave, because it would not be worth exhuming 58 bodies at their cost and risk of other people's lives. The 58 that were trapped were left in a place as a mass grave and a reminder of the dangers of unsafe mining practices and the ignorance of danger signs. I got a spoiler for you. Those warning signs will be ignored, as they always are. Though technically not a survivor, there was one person who was on the scene at the night of the squeeze that made it out to tell a cautionary tale. Edward Hughes left in defiance to his shift bosses due to his fear of the ever-increasing cracks and pops heard throughout the mine the night of 27 June, 1896. So, right before it occurred, so there were warning signs. I don't know why I didn't notice that before. There were warning signs that something was going to happen. And he was like, nah, this ain't worth it. So he left that night. So you may think, well, if he was so smart early to recognize those warning signs, like I said he did, why didn't everyone else just up and leave? Now remember, this was the 1800s. This is 1896, more importantly. Everyone is trying to chase the American dream. They're trying to make it for their family. There's all those Polanders and Huns that had come to America and they want to make it for their family, if not send money back home. So for them to just essentially completely defy what their bosses are telling them, that means that they're out of a job. That means that they aren't going to be able to make it. I mean, I'm sure that these communities are small in terms of coaling, and they're going to hear oh, this guy doesn't follow orders, so he's not going to get a job anywhere. He's going to get blacklisted. So they're going to trust their bosses on this. So maybe this Edward Hughes guy was just doing this as a lark. He was just I'm independently wealthy. Let's just go coal mining for a little bit. Like Derek Zoolander in the first Zoolander movie when he goes back to see his dad and his brothers. This disaster left 31 widows and 101 orphans to mourn over a single mass grave. I can't find any information. I remember reading in passing, but I was doing this when I was working dispatch, so I kind of forgot to save a lot of links. But I remember reading something about that the wives got payouts for for the rest of their lives unless they married again, because now they have another man to support them. They would pay them to essentially like life insurance kind of payout because of the danger that they incurred and the fact that they died when warning signs were ignored. And let's say that for the orphans, they got a payout until they were 10. So if you were 13, you're SOL. But then again, I can't find that information, so I might just be making this up, which if it is, I really hope that that's the way it was. So what became of this loss? Did the coal industry take a turn and, push the regulations, become better, make it safer for people to work down there? No! That was stupid for you to think that. Accidents continued to happen because everyone wanted that sweet, sweet anthracite. They wanted that money. They wanted all that because coal is the way of the future, as we are seeing now. This accident was used as fuel to later embolden labor strikes in 1900 that resulted in the 8-hour workday, 5-day work week, which were ratified under President Theodore Roosevelt. Oh, crap, it's full circle. Talking about my nickname on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and now we got Theodore Roosevelt with the labor reforms. That's a weird coincidence. There was complete coincidence. This wasn't like I'm making a joke about this. This is weird. Conspiracy theory time. Theorists believe that the alignment across the solar system between the Earth and 2 or more planets may provide sufficient forces to be a contributing factor in the cause of such event. Do you believe? To a certain degree, I can kind of understand the logic behind this because just like, the moon affects tides because of its gravitational pull when it's like, directly over, like it does slightly affect it. So if you align the planets in such a way, maybe their gravitational pull, I don't fucking know. I'm not an astrologist. Astronomer. Astrology is I'm Aries, so I'm sad or something like that. But I think it's really undermines the fact that it was a lot of pillar robbing and throwing dynamite in the floor. There's a lot of those things are probably the true factor as to why this happened. Not the planet's alignment. Like it's not the planet's alignment isn't the reason why you're gonna make a bunch of money or find the love of your life. It's actually just pillar robbing. Pillar robbing is the reason why you can't find love. It's like, if you recall, I was reading this, so this is yet again, I got another weird segment, a weird segue. I kind of spoke on my ass as opposed to from my script. So if you recall from my video on Centralia, that you're going to watch after this one, and you're going to also like that video and comment on it and say, wow, you've really come a long way from this video in your research, in your demeanor, and your lighting, because I'm just using ambient light right now because my house is under construction still. Oh yeah, my house is under construction now. But the pillar robbing was what happened after the mine was abandoned and caused severe collapse, and subsequently, especially once the fire went through. I butchered that sentence, but pick up the piece of yourself. I'm almost done. So conspiracy theory time over. Conspiracy theory time over. Well, I should cut myself off before I do more. I wrote this down. I should cut myself off before I do any more research on this, but the research is over. I'm recording the video now. But if you want to see any more videos like this one, too bad. I'm probably going to do more. I already have another mine disaster in the pocket, so too bad, so sad on that one. But if you want to see any more informational videos on disasters, I'm focusing on Pennsylvania. If you guys have a suggestion, leave in the comments below. I also got an Instagram. It's detective_trogdor_deep_dive on Instagram. You can, send me a message there and, tell me that you love, how strong I am now because I've been lifting a lot more weights. Or my Don Barocco t-shirt or these 2 bicycles here or my chickens that scream at me. But, I've been having a lot of fun with this, even though this is like 3, 4... I don't know. I'll throw a time card up to show you how long it's been since I recorded the last one. But if you have any suggestions on what I should do next, please don't hesitate to tell me. But yeah, bye.